So, hello and welcome to another episode of the CX Files, the podcast where the top practitioners of CX come and talk to us about their knowledge, their learnings, their experiences, and best practices so that we can make our own customer experiences a little better. I'm your host, Sumit Saxena, and I'm the founder of Merren. 2023 is coming to an end, and so is this season of CX Files. So I thought the most apt topic for this episode would be to discuss the evolution and future of CX. And to discuss that with us today, we have David Avrin, who's a globally renowned CX keynote speaker and an author. He has had audiences, he's shared his insights with audiences globally, from North America to Dubai to my hometown of Mumbai. He's written not one, not two, but 5 books on CX, including visibility marketing and why customers leave. So let's dive into his perspective on the future of customer experience. So a warm welcome, David. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great opportunity. That's one of the things I really love about podcasts like this. It's an opportunity to talk to a global audience, and more, of course, the learning is global, and the delivery of services and the access to products and services is global. And so I think it's a great conversation for an ongoing look at what's changing, what are we learning from each other, and what do customers and clients and patients and constituents expect from us?
Absolutely. And David, I feel that I've kind of undersold you. I'm seeing like 5 of your books lined up right there. Why don't you take like a couple of minutes and just talk about yourself?
I don't think you undersold me at all. I'll tell you, that's another thing. It just, even in the calls, on the Zoom calls and everything else, is, are we curating a background? Are we doing something to be as professional as we can be? So of course I have my books here strategically located next to my head, and some of the other foreign language versions of them as well. As you had mentioned before, I speak and I consult on customer experience. I spent the first part of my career, I had a marketing firm. So I did marketing and branding and public relations, and helped organizations better differentiate themselves in competitive marketplaces. I found the world of speaking and sort of teaching and training as part of that to help organizations better craft the words and messages they use to distinguish themselves from others as well. But what was interesting was how much the world was changing in terms of our access for information, and of course social media and the iPhone and everything else. And I began to see a really remarkable shift in how consumers behave. And it became far less important what companies say about themselves, not unimportant, but less important than what other people were saying about them. And so that began my work and my research into what was driving that behavior. Why are companies, or why are customers buying? Why are they leaving? And where was the clash between an organization's actions and intentions and the desires and preferability of the customers? And so that is what I have made my work here in my third act. I'm really fortunate to travel the world. I did almost 200,000 miles last year, working with organizations, speaking to audiences about what has become my mantra, which is helping them differentiate themselves, future-proof their engagement by becoming ridiculously easy to do business with. And that's my mission.
Fantastic. And I'm happy that you've touched upon the behavior of customers, because I think any discussion on future of customer experience cannot begin without talking about the future of customers themselves.
Absolutely.
So where do you think the shift in the customer behavior or customer expectation is at this point, and how is that going to drive the future of customer experience?
Well, the shift has been tremendous, but on both the company and the enterprise side, but also on the customer side. On the customer side, I think it's largely driven by an unprecedented wealth of options and choices. So much of marketing, I remember back in the early days, because I'm old, and I did marketing and advertising and branding in the early days. And for local shops, local stores, we looked at that 3 to 5 mile radius, or whatever that is in kilometers. And then, of course, the internet opened up the world. And now our choices weren't as far as we could walk or drive or ride our bikes. Mm-hmm. Now it's everything. And so competitors have become global. And so we no longer have to differentiate from from a restaurant, let's say, that is within a couple of miles, but now it's potential food service or delivery from around the world. And so the explosion of choices of products and services has been absolutely amazing for consumers. And it's been a source of consternation for companies and enterprise. On one hand, we can now look at a global audience for our goods and services. But at the same time, we have global competitors for our goods and services. So what I think it makes it really imperative that we do as businesses and organizations is become not just competent, not just compliant, maybe from a regulatory perspective. The key is this: we have to become preferable. And that is, and what's driving preferability today is different than it was 20 years ago, because there was a time, for going back to your question about where the shifts are happening, it was who had the most clever, the most memorable marketing messages. Today, there has been such an equaling, an evening out of quality. Everybody's good. And we've never seen that before. Yep. Maybe we were just unaware 50 years ago of what was not necessarily a particularly great product. But now, because consumers, and we're all consumers as well, because we have access to a bullhorn that reaches around the world through social media, through TripAdvisor and Yelp and Rotten Tomatoes and all of those review sites, bad behavior is called out very, very quickly. Poor players don't survive, and they certainly don't thrive. And so it has empowered consumers to have access to who's good, who's bad. It has empowered consumers to recognize through the web that they can find anything that they want. Yep. And so back to the question of where that differentiation is, my contention, I think you would agree with me, that I think the real opportunity for differentiation today, provided we have quality, can't take our eye off the ball, the opportunity is provide a superior experience, simplicity, process, ease.
Yeah, I'm actually, sorry to interrupt you, but
go ahead.
I was actually watching a video that you put on your website, and you speak about convenience, and I thought it's just such an important word in customer experience, right? So when convenience speaks to access of information, access of product, access of ability to buy that product from wherever it is in the world. And I think that in itself has changed the way the customer expectation or customer behavior run today.
Yeah, well, what's interesting is, and I think the term is right, convenience, but it's more than just access. It's ease of access, and that's the differentiation. It was we potentially had access to things, but convenience kind of combines the two. It's not only can we get it easily, can we get it quickly? And I ask audiences all the time as I travel the world. I said, anybody notice that your customers or clients are a little more impatient, a little more demanding? And of course, everybody nods their head like, yeah, welcome to my world. Well, this is why. Yeah. It's because we are being trained. Some might say we're being spoiled. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter. It's just the reality of the world today. Once again, as a consumer, it's awesome because anything that you can afford, you can get. In most cases, you can get it delivered to your location. Right. Same day, within a week, or very, very quickly. So our expectations have changed dramatically. You know, as I talk to organizational leaders, and I'll ask them the question, what do you think is your big differentiator? What do you think is your competitive advantage? And it's always some version of superior quality, commitment, caring, trust. It's about our people. All important, but here's what the research shows. Today, people are prioritizing speed. And flexibility and simplicity of process. And as you had mentioned, convenience. My colleague Sally Hogshead talks about branding, that different is better than better, right, today. And I would put even a different twist on that. And I would say today, convenient is better than better. Provided everybody's good, who's more convenient? It's a huge and primary driver of consumer behavior today.
It almost sounds to me like the incumbents, the market leaders, are at a disadvantage because they've come with a certain mindset, right? Marketing worked in a very different way, probably 20 years from earlier, right? It will work very different 20 years from now. So incumbents, I mean, it's almost like shedding your skin and relearning everything, which I think organizationally is so hard to do.
Yeah, well, but it's imperative that we always stay on the forefront, on the cutting edge. And I think there's a growing recognition that it's difficult because the internal conversation is always, we're going to win on quality. And the reality is, quality is the entry fee. That's not a real differentiator today. I mean, that gives you permission to do business in the marketplace. But provided they're good at what they do, I think organizational leaders and certainly management is coming to recognize that as they begin to see new competitors, as they see disruption in their marketplace, maybe a shedding of customers to competitors who are newer, we're recognizing that some of the processes, how are we accessing information? How easy are you to get a hold of? How easy are you to pay? How easy are you to complain to? That's driving preferences, it's driving frustration, it's driving people who go online and leave negative comments. And so, yeah, it's a very difficult environment, but it's absolutely crucial. And those who stay on top of all of that and look at their brand, look at their processes, look at all of that with fresh eyes, walk your own processes. How easy is it to get a hold of somebody? How easy is it to find a phone number, right? We go to websites. You have a question. You have just a simple question. There is no phone number. There's like no way other than a contact form, which we all hate. There's no way to get a hold of them. And that kind of friction in the process, it's not gonna fly. It's not gonna work in the future. And so a lot of these processes, I think, as you suggested, were created 10, 20 years ago. And so we're having to go back and look at our business with fresh eyes, and stop drinking the Kool-Aid to the extent that we think as long as we have superior quality, that's going to take care of everything. I heard an organizational leader, I was keynoting a conference, and the president of the conference of the company spoke before me and did kind of a state of the company. And the last thing he said was, we're going to make this year the best ever. And remember, at the end of the day, it's about quality. We are going to win on quality. And of course, everybody's cheering. And I thought to myself, I could not disagree more. At the end of the day, it's not about quality. As I said, at the beginning of the day, it's about quality. Quality is the entry fee. We better be good at what we do, or the marketplace will figure it out. But at the end of the day, it's about competitive advantage. It's not what do you do well, what do you do better than others who do it well? And what we're seeing is the opportunity today is to be easier to work with, easier to buy from, easier to speak to, and easier to pay. And those who are simplifying process, those who are looking at contracts and cutting them in half, looking at customer journeys and finding ways to help people skip the line and get to what they want faster. It's exciting for me. I think there's some phenomenal innovation going on, but there are companies who are dragging their feet and they're going to be left behind.
Right. So I'm going to come back and ask you what companies have done this well and which haven't. But I just had a thought. So we're living in a society or a world where it's a renter's society, right? So we're not buying software anymore. We're subscribing to software. Similarly, we're not buying cars as much as we're traveling on Uber and all. So it's not one short transaction anymore, right? So this becomes even more, this convenience, this ability to leave customer with a smile so that he comes back becomes even more important, right?
Right. Well, we're seeing is, and my friend Robbie Kelman-Baxter wrote the book on all of this, which is The Membership Economy, right? And Forever Customer, her other book. Yeah. And it's very alluring for organizations to have ongoing, predictable revenue, right? It's a phenomenal business model and very, very, very smart. It actually allows individuals to potentially not make a major commitment. They can try and buy, but we're also seeing subscription fatigue. Now, a lot of things that used to be free, all of a sudden, it's only, I'm talking American terms here, of course, like $4.99 a month or $10 a month. But then you add it up to another one and you've got Apple Plus, and now you've got, Cinemax Plus, and you've got Paramount Plus, and all of these networks, and Disney Plus. At some point, we have to start making some decisions and start, do we keep Netflix? Do we keep something else? So I think the marketplace is still figuring it out. And to me, it's really interesting as somebody who studies this and looks at the behavior, at what point do we get to a level of frustration that we say no more. Having a challenge in America, what they're calling tipflation. Tipping is sort of a big deal, but now we look at the screen after we swipe our card or tap our credit card, and it's like, do you want to pay 20%, 25%, 30%? It's like, you just rang up my order. You handed me a cup of coffee,
right.
And now it's become a joke. But the marketplace is figuring out how far can we go, right? We're seeing the same thing with self-checkout. Very convenient for customers, unless you're buying a lot of items. So we go one of our huge stores here at Walmart, and my shopping cart is overflowing because we got 5 kids in their 20s, and they come home for the holidays and they eat a lot of food. And I'm walking up to the front, and they direct me towards self-checkout. And I'm like, this will take me an hour. Your people can do it much faster. And they say, but no, we give you a choice. But it's not a choice, because you have one person working in 9 carts in a row and 27 self-checkout. That's not a choice. That's social engineering. How much are we going to put up with before we say, I'm going to go shop somewhere else? We're still figuring that out. And to me, that's really exciting, because I think the marketplace is going to look very different. You talk about the future of CX. Yep. I think a lot of those things will shake out over the next 3 to 5 years, maybe even earlier. We'll find out how much tolerance people have for self-checkout. We'll find out how much tolerance people have for AI and chatbots, right? And probably that will increase its acceptance as chatbots gets better. But there's also a portion of the population that wants to be able to connect with a human being, because maybe their situation is a little more complex. Now, layer another thing on top of that, we have multiple generations. We have young people in their 20s, very comfortable with technology. We've got people in their 70s and 80s who are not. And so as a business, as enterprise, as small businesses, it is very difficult. How do we serve a 25-year-old and how do we serve a 75-year-old, because they want to do business with us differently? So as we talk about the future, I think some of those people who are less comfortable with technology will fall off. Translation, they will die because they're getting older. And there will be a generation everybody's fairly comfortable with it. Right. But the real question in my mind, and I'm sort of driving some of those conversations with my clients and my audiences, is how much are we as customers willing to put up with? How much frustration? Because staffing is a big issue, right? We can't, all of us, we can't get what we want whenever we want it. But how does the enterprise balance the cost and the technology convenience, and how do we both? So it's a great conversation to have. And I think if you and I have this conversation, let's make a date. Let's do it again one year from right now.
Absolutely.
And compare the changes, because I think it's exciting to see what's good and what's bad. And there's a lot of both right now.
I almost feel like we are in this phase of experimentation. And my worry is that we've entered into it, but we might not exit out of it, because the technology cycles have shortened. So we have a new toy to play with every year, right? So today, yes, it was chatbot, and now it's AI and all those things. So the luxury that we had of actually building efficiencies and getting better at it, we might never have again. So that's going to be a challenge. But sorry, David, you were saying something. Sorry, carry on.
No, I was going to say, but much of that, of course, was accelerated by the pandemic. Zoom existed before COVID, but it accelerated because we had to find necessity being the mother of invention. We had to find ways to connect more often face to face, because we couldn't do it in person without a mask. And so we saw a lot of advancements and acceleration of certain conveniences, which have been really, really terrific. But we've also seen some things that may not stick so well. I think conversations like you and I are having, we're literally on 2 opposite sides of the world, real time. For my parents' generation who've passed away, this is magic. Friend, this is magic. For you and I, it's Friday. Right? So this isn't going away, but there are also prognosticators who are saying that conferences were going to be hybrid and they're going virtual. They were horrible. Multiple 3-day conferences on your computer. It's horrible. Meetings on your computer, it's very efficient. It's awesome. We can see each other face to face. So we're sort of saying this part worked, this part was too much, right? We saw during COVID with a lot of restaurants, eliminating menus because they didn't want people touching things. And then they went to QR codes. Well, now we are, and I know this podcast will be a little bit evergreen, but as we record this, we're 3 years out from the pandemic. And I still go to restaurants and there's a QR code. And I said, can I get a menu, please? And they said, no, it's a QR code. And I said, I'm 60 years old. My eyes can't, without reading glasses, I can't read it on my phone. It's too small. And they said, well, no, but it's more convenient so that we can change it. I said, yeah, but it's more convenient for you, but it's not convenient for me. And so that's one of those things that we're saying, okay, this was a new way of doing what we do, but there's a real downside to it. Delivery of food from restaurants and DoorDash and Postmates is phenomenal. Is that going to go away? Not a chance. Amazon and Alibaba and all of those things, we're seeing some things that we've learned are very preferable and that we accept as a new way of doing what we do. And then there's other stuff that say, we tried it, not so good. Right? Even with chatbots and others as well. That was those who are selling them, who have a dog in the race. They're saying it's chat. It's do it with the chatbots. You're going to save so much money on staffing. We're going to take care of the people. But there's a certain amount of questions that they can't answer at this point. There's nuance to circumstances that we're trying to resolve that really require a real person. So we've learned that has a role, but we also need an off-ramp to a real person. Right. And that's when I do funny bits on stage about that. We're on our phone going, person, agent, representative. I think you said no, right? And that frustration, and people laugh. It's like, but we shouldn't have to yell at our phone to get what we want, but we're going to get better. And I think businesses, I think that the finance departments, the bean counters, as we call them in organizations, have had their say. We've gotten very good at cutting expenses, but at some point we're coming to realize maybe we cut a little too far. And yes, we're going to save this much money, but how many customers did we lose in that process because we frustrated them? So it's all still in process.
I mean, the best example of that is Zoom opening its office again, the physical office, getting people back. Tells us that not everything.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
So great. David, let's go back to the transition towards the CX future, and we said that we'll come back for examples, right? So let's talk about examples of companies that are doing really well making this transition, and some companies, or if not companies, at least categories that are not doing a great job of doing that.
Yeah, I think there's always some obvious examples, and some of these are prevalent around the world, and some are less so. In America, in many of the places I go, Uber has become one of the most, a real poster child for simplicity of doing business, which is kind of ironic because we grew up and our mom and dad told us, don't talk to strangers and never get in a car with somebody you don't know. And now we talk to strangers and we get into cars of people we don't know. But when you really look at granularly at that process and what makes it simple and convenient, which also gives us confidence, makes it predictable, is that we can choose the car, we have an idea of what it's going to cost, and then we can track progress, which is also just an element that we're seeing from others as well. Can you see the status of your order? Can you see where the process is of your car getting repaired? Well, everything is really manifests very well within that whole customer journey for Uber or DoorDash or some of those as well. But with Uber, you can see who your driver is. You can see what their score is. So you can see whether or not they let them know if you prefer conversation or not. You can see how far away they are, where they're turning. You can chat with them live. You get in the car, and when you're done, you get out. You don't have to pull out your credit card. You don't have to because all of that is done. It is the most easy, simple, convenient process.
I'll add one more thing to it.
Yeah.
No matter where in the world you are, it's the same process, right? So I don't have to go and learn how to hail a cab anymore.
Yeah.
I go to the same app and get a cab, and that's convenience, right?
Well, and here's a really weird analogy. They are the McDonald's of transportation, because McDonald's, if you look at what their real value proposition is, McDonald's value proposition isn't quality, it's not freshness, it's predictability. It is the most consistent, predictable, good food on the planet. You know, a chicken nugget is a chicken nugget is a chicken nugget, and it's going to taste the same no matter where you are in the world.
Right.
The French fries are going to be the same no matter where you are in the world. And so there's a lot of studies behind the fact that we would love to make the best decision possible, but we will oftentimes opt for the safe choice, right? That one may be good, great, but I don't want to take a chance. I know that that's good. What Uber has done is they have become so remarkably, predictably simple and predictably predictable. You know what I mean? And so it's the easiest choice. I used to rent cars all the time, and now, and part of it, I just get tired and I just jump in the back of a car, and I don't worry about it because they'd had problems along the way. They've addressed those, they've solved those. Now we have a sense of who it is and what their score and the kind of car and look for this license plate. And so I think that's the greatest example. And I think organizations can look at different elements of that and say, what can we learn from that? Is there a way for our customers to track our progress? Is there a way for our customers to have confidence in terms of when something will be done or delivered so that they can move on with their life? And then in terms of bad examples, there's a number of those. One was actually kind of funny. I was in London and I was traveling on a train to one of the outlying cities to do a presentation. And I stopped I wish I could show you a picture of this because it just made me laugh. I saw a couple of vending machines that were connected right next to each other. One had soda and one had snacks and chocolate and chips and things like that. And what was really interesting about it was there was no way to put in a credit card. There was no way to put in money. All there was a QR code on the front. And so I looked at this, it was really fascinating. And so I'm always looking for examples. Was it good? Was it bad? And what they want you to scan the QR code, and then you had to download the app, and then you had to pull out your wallet and enter in your credit card information and your address. So you can see why they wanted to do this, right? So now they captured your information, they can market to you, whatever. And once you have all of that in there and you get approved, then you can once again scan the machine, choose what you want on your phone, and hit pay, and it comes out. Now, what was really interesting, and you would find obvious, was that both of the machines were completely full. Why? Because it's a train station. Everybody's in a hurry. So they created a solution looking for a problem. Yep. You know, it worked the way it did before. You could tap your credit card, you could whatever, but they convinced somebody that this was a better way. And who was it better for? It was better for that company, because they wanted to capture your information, and you do all, and all they did was create friction, and nobody wanted to play a part of it. I did the same thing. I drove through a hamburger place here in America, and they had a special deal for 2 sandwiches for $1 or whatever else, but they wouldn't let me order it. I had to do it on the app, and I'm already in line. They said, no, you can pull over and just download the app. And I'm like, thank you for that permission. And it took me 10 minutes to enter the credit. It was a complete pain, but there's a disconnect. Yep. The company, of course, wants your information, but they made it harder to buy. And very obvious studies, when you make things more difficult, people do less of it. When you make things easy, they do more of it. A specific example of a company is in where I am. I'm in Denver, Colorado. So for those internationally, we're about right in the middle of America, just a little bit to the left. And one of our airlines is called Frontier Airlines. Used to be a good airline. Now it's a very, very low cost airline. And a year ago, they issued a press release and they announced that they will no longer offer voice support in their customer service. Like, you can't even pay for it. You cannot talk to a person. They're not even offering. They're not going to staff that.
Wow.
And then they tried to spin it, and they put a statement that said, we have found that our customers really enjoy the digital options. And I'm like, really? Did you really find that? And when you look at how many disruptions happen in airline travel, right? Cancellations all the time. I'm thinking, gee, what could possibly go wrong? And they're not stupid. I mean, they've made a decision internally. We will be the airline of last resort, if you can afford, right? And they're probably, the bean counter said there's a formula that makes sense, but I would never fly them, because if there's a disruption and I have an audience of 1,000 people, whatever, waiting on the other end in a different city, I can't take a chance that I can't get it resolved. I don't want to stand. I don't want to be on hold for hours. I don't want to stand. Well, I guess you can't do that because there's no voice support. I don't want to stand in a line. So it really baffles me that some of the decisions organizations are making that are actually taking away choices in a time when we need to adopt an omni-channel mindset. However somebody wants to communicate, give them the option. However, somebody wants to pay you, give them the option. I mean, my clients pay me by PayPal and Zelle and Stripe and Apple Pay. I mean, my God, they're trying to pay me. The answer is yes.
Yeah. No, I think sometimes companies forget that it's not only the money that they're paying you, they're also paying you in terms of time and the effort that they're making.
Yeah.
I think if you don't account for that, I think you're undervaluing your customer. And I think a lot of these things happen because accountants become responsible for customer experience, and then we are into a big trouble.
I think in the theme of this conversation, as you started it off, which is talking about the future, I think the future success is reserved for those who have struck a balance between their own internal efficiencies, cost savings, and what our customers prefer. And I think technology will help a lot of that. But those who look at like in a call center, those who look at technology as an excuse to not talk to their customers have it wrong.
Yep.
Technology is best used so that you have time to speak to the customers who need you. That makes sense?
Absolutely,
yeah, with chatbots and others as well. Chatbots is not so that you don't have to talk to your customers, is that so you can help those who don't need it, who just need a quick answer, but then you freed up time in your schedule, in your staffing to be able to talk to the people who do.
Correct. And the tricky bit is like achieving efficiency, which leads to automation, and not losing your human touch. And I think that balance is so hard to achieve. And I think it's an iterative.
And it's different with different industries, right? It's different with technology, with healthcare. It's different with restaurant and retail, and it's exciting to me to watch and maybe to some extent help lead some of those changes.
So, David, let's if there was one current trend that you would want to change, what would that be?
The one trend that I would change, that's a great question, is I would try to knock it into the heads of leaders. Stop trying to force your customers to do business with you the way you want them to do business with you. Some of them get very excited that they've created a new path, a new technology that, of course, is cost savings, and they try to drive their customers to do business that way. We know when we're on hold with a company, and we hear 10 messages that say, just if you want to press 9 if you want to use our digital assistant. Please use our digital assistant. Please go to our chat feature. We're excited to introduce our new chat features. Like, well, there's a reason why I'm on the phone. Stop trying to make me do it the way you want me to do it. You walk into a doctor's office in many places, and an urgent care center, for example, and they hand you an electronic device, like an iPad or something that you were not trained on, by the way, so that you can enter all of your information. And I'm like, so the receptionist doesn't have to do the work. Let's transfer that to the guy who's bleeding from his head. Let's make the patient do the work. It's like, really? And so I think that's the answer. I think that the most dangerous trend, I think the smartest way is to give your customers and clients options. And I think the wrong approach is to push them or drive them or take away options so that they do business with you the way you want them to. And I don't think customers will put up with it for very long, especially as others become easier to do business with. Those who have too much friction in their system will become very, very obvious and will struggle to.
No, I agree. I think the more you use technology, the more you use tools to improve your customer's experience and not your own efficiency. I think yes,
or balance. I mean, both are important. I'm not naive, right? We know that companies have to be efficient. We know that staffing is very difficult right now. Retention of employees and productivity of employees very difficult right now, because once again, employees also have choices. Just because they're your internal customers, right? And so we're not naive. We know that those challenges and those pressures are always there. But as an organizational leader, if you are making decisions that make life easier for your team, but in doing so, it makes it more difficult for your customers, you need to revisit that decision.
Great, fantastic. So, David, we're coming towards the end of this podcast, and we have a little section called the rapid fire. Okay, so we'll have
All right,
5 or
let's
6
do it.
questions, and the only requirement is good answers and fast answers. All right, so
You're requiring good answers?
I'm requiring good answers. My expectation is good answers. But let's
right, go
strike
ahead,
a
go.
balance. Okay, let's go.
Right.
So, in your view, what's the most important CX metric?
Churn,
Fantastic.
retention of customers and clients. And that's something that's easier to track than many of the other things. For those who've been doing business with you, are they doing business with you long term? Are you losing the people who at one point liked you and they no longer do? I think that's a very important metric to study.
And I can see why customers leave and how to win them back right behind you.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Cues right into the answer. The brand that you admire most for customer experience?
Amazon. They are ridiculously easy to do business with. I know they have hurt a lot of other industries, but they've only hurt other industries because they're so good.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you really quickly, I know we're rapid fire, but I live just south of Denver, Colorado, and we have, I think, 3 Amazon distribution warehouses near us because we're kind of centrally located. 80% of what we order, we get the same day.
Yeah.
We're spoiled. It's ridiculously easy. But I'm sorry that others can't compete.
Right.
But as a customer, I want ease. I want convenience. I want great prices.
So just as an aside, we have now startups in India which deliver in 15 to 20 minutes.
It's amazing.
That's amazing.
It's ridiculous.
Given how bad our traffic is, that's completely ridiculous.
Right. I can't even go somewhere in 15 to 20 minutes.
Absolutely.
Right? Our parents and our grandparents looking at this just can't even believe that it's happening. And soon it'll be drones, which will be even better.
Right. Fantastic. I forgot this was rapid fire. The biggest the biggest myth about customer experience.
The biggest myth?
Myth, yeah.
I think the biggest myth, and boy, some people are going to hate me for this one. Simon Sinek says that people buy your why. I think it's nonsense. I don't think they care about your why. They care about their why. I think you need to know your why. You need to know what gets you up in the morning and what really drives you. But I don't think customers are going to buy from you because you're passionate about your subject. They buy from you for their reasons. I think the biggest myth, I don't think they buy your why. They buy their why, and their why is who can get it to me faster, what's convenient, what I don't have to wait for.
No, I love that answer. I'm so glad I asked you this question. Next question, the future of customer experience in one word.
Convenience.
Fantastic. One tool or technology that's going to be a game changer for CX.
I think it already is, but it's the mobile device. I think how we use it is going to be even more convenient. I think biometrics, our face is going to be our password, our eyes, the one click is going to become prevalent for so many organizations, digital currency, all of that, but it's all going to be facilitated on our mobile device. It is, but it's going to grow to a level that we haven't seen. And once again, for customers, it's going to be awesome.
All right. Last question, but I'm going to split it into two separate questions. So the question is, a book that you would recommend in the field of CX, but I know you are for yourself, so I'm going to split it into 2 parts. Which book, if I had to pick one book for you to recommend from your own portfolio, can you tell me that?
I will do my own first. I just read, Roger Dooley wrote a book called Friction. A lot of studies. It may, and it's about, friction, of course, frustration, what things are difficult to do and easy to do. I thought I was pretty good at it. He's brilliant. And made me look at, honestly, there's part I'm angry at him because now I realize all the friction in my life that I didn't even think about before. And I notice everything that's kind of a pain and frustrating. But it is a brilliant book and really makes you look at the world differently. And for those of us who are solution oriented, how do we address that? How do we make it better? How do we simplify it or expedite it? So a big recommendation for Roger Dooley's book, Friction. And for my books, honestly, my newest book, I'm really proud of. It's called The Morning Huddle. powerful customer experience conversations to wake you up and shake you up and win more business. And it came from a video series I produced, but it's everyone is an idea to talk over with your team and challenges your thinking about how easy we are to do business with. And so each one's a different subject. Put it next to your bed, put it in your bathroom, and read an idea and say, here's what we conversations to have with your team about how can we do this better and faster and more conveniently.
All right, so that's a wrap on this episode of the CX Files. David, thank you so much for being here, sparing your time and sharing such invaluable insights on the future of customer
Sure. I appreciate it very much. If people want to learn more about me and what I do, look me up at davidavrin.com.
Fantastic. So to our listeners, I hope this gave you a little glimpse on what the future of CX looks like. So this, as I said, was the finale episode for 2023, but we'll be back in 2024 with another season of the CX Files. So don't forget to tune in. Until then, keep listening, keep learning, and keep your customers smiling. So thank you for tuning in, and goodbye.